we have gone through all of our HTML and CSS videos. We've taken an intro look at Bootstrap and front-end frameworks. We've thrown together a nice little website with almost no CSS. We have our cool little silly animals navigation bar with some added JavaScript that automatically opens and closes for us depending on the size of the page. We have a nice little Asterisk Life header, H1. We have a cool little Jumbotron here. We've split Asterisk Life into 3 columns. We have some buttons in a row that are automatically adjusted for us. We have a nice little block quote from Beyonce, Queen Bee. And I think it's time to get into the stuff that gave us the most trouble in our HTML and CSS videos. And that was making the cards. Now, we finished Jumbotron last time. So let's take a look at the next component that I use pretty regularly in any of my websites. These are called cards. Cards are pretty fly. They're just a little section for you to highlight a specific amount of content that's small, digestible, and is easy to display for whatever you want your user to see. I like to put images on my cards almost all the time, but sometimes you can have these nice little special treatment cards that also look pretty cool. Here's a little bit of sample code for what a card might look like. So inside this card, inside the body of my HTML page here, I have a div with a class of container, holding a div with a class of row, holding a div with a class of card. And this is where the card starts, right here. And you can see the card contains a few things. First of all, I gave it some inline styles which override all the other styles. So I'm automatically setting the width to 20 rem. Now, you don't need to know what that means right now. I just wanted to show you because I got this directly from the Bootstrap website. Then there's an image with a class of card image top. This guarantees that this card is the image on the top of the card. This image is the image on the top of the card. We also have a div with a class of card block. Inside the card block div, we're holding an H4 that says card title. We have some paragraph tag with the class of card text. That's some text. And then we have 2 buttons. Now you'll notice that's basically what gives us this right here. This image comes from that little chunk of code that I just showed you. So making that is not that hard. Let's go ahead and do that ourselves. But first, I'm going to go to the Get Bootstrap website, back to where all of our documentation is. So at the very top of this page, you'll see the, oh yeah, Bootstrap 4 is coming. Go ahead and make sure you click that first, because we're using the experimental Bootstrap 4, which is currently in its alpha version. Alpha 4.0.0-alpha.6, which means that it's not ready to use yet. They're going to be changing a bunch of things, but it's cool to play around with, and I want to teach you how to use it anyway. Up top, go ahead and click the button that says Documentation. Okay. So when you get to this page, on the right, there's a ton of little options for you to click from. Getting started, introduction, contents, JavaScript, etc. We're going to go straight to the components one in the bottom right. When you click on components, you'll see all of the Bootstrap components that are available for you. The ones we're going to be looking at right now are the cards. So click on cards. And I want you to just go ahead and scroll down and see all the card options you have here. By the way, there are a ton. There's tons of ways to do cards. Not everyone agrees on how cards should look. There's a lot of good opinions on how to style cards, how to use cards, component type nature of cards. We'll talk more about these later. But for now, I just want to give you a quick, brief introduction to a couple different ways that you can make cards look using Bootstrap. These are my favorite kind, by the way. I like the inverted cards. They just look really nice. So I'm going to grab one right here. And we are going to throw it into our HTML. So if you go down about a little bit more than halfway, there's one that says Card Styles for Inverted Text. If you click that one and copy it, you can paste it directly into your HTML below your quote. The Beyonce quote. So find your Beyonce quote down here. Past line 80, I'm going to make a few spaces and then just paste in this little card. And you'll see it right there. But you'll notice it takes up the entire width of the screen right now. And that just doesn't look very nice. If we pop it into a bigger screen, let's see what it looks like. Okay. I really don't like cards that extend all the way across the page. I think that looks silly. There's other elements that do that much, much better. What I would do instead is I would select that this card should have a width of, like, well, we can go back to the one that said before, 20 rem. So right after background color and border color, let's say width 20 rem. Just like that. And automatically the card gets smaller. And on a big screen, it looks like this. See that? There's my card. It's now bumped up against the left. So that's cool, and it allows us to make some additional styling choices as we start to lay out our page. Now, if I want to center this card, or if I want to put a bunch of cards next to each other, like we had on our Silly Animals website, I'd probably want to put this whole thing inside a little div with a class of container. Oops. Right? And make sure to end the container div after my card div, just like this. Grab some indentation so that we can tell that it's nested inside the container div. And when we do that, it's slightly pushed away from the border. And there's our nice little card. Okay. Now you can make cards look much better than this. We're taking a very, very simple version of a card right now. I like the color scheme. I think it looks pretty nice. It's kind of like a chalkboard. So that's just kind of why I'm going with this for right now. But you can pick from any of the different styles that Bootstrap gives you. Let's take a look at another type of card. And let's see if we can put it right next to that card right there. Let's actually... Right here, this is what we're going to be trying to do. Card groups like this, or even card decks, are actually I like a little bit better. But before we do that, let's try and do it ourselves. Let's just grab another card with a little image. Let's go with something like one of these guys right up here. Ah, there we go. No, not that one. Let's go with the first one. There we go. The first card example we're given. Grab this one at the very top and paste it in. You'll notice they give it a style with the width of 20 rem also. But when you paste it in, there's going to be an issue. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So inside your container, directly next to the other card, paste in your card. The new one that I just saw, it's at the very top of the Bootstrap page. Under the example, the first example they give you. When you do that and you save it, you should see that card below, but there's a problem with it. What do you notice about this problem right here? That image is gone. The reason why is because they don't give you an image with the card. So a good one that I like to pick from, that I showed you in the little Bootstrap example right here, is by Lorem Pixel. http://lorempixel.com, and you can specify the height and width of your image. So let's go ahead and enter that in right now. I'm going to say http://lorempixel.com/200/200. And it'll automatically give you an image. See that? A random image. If I save this and I refresh it, it'll give me a new image. So just a random image every time. See what I'm saying here? Lorem Pixel is really useful for grabbing any random image and just putting it in your stuff. And on a bigger web page, let's see what it looks like. Okay, they're not lined up in a row. That doesn't look quite as nice. So let's nest both of those inside a div with a class of row. Okay. Now if I save this and I go to the big page, now they line up right next to each other. See this? Now I have two cards stacking right next to each other. And if I wanted a bunch of them, if I paste this exact same card in again, let's take this little card right here and paste another one right after itself. Just like that. And then I'm going to nest all of these with a little indentation. So I have a div with a class of container. Nested inside that, I have a div with a class of row. And then I have three different cards. An inverse card and two of the same card with a picture. A random picture from lorempixel.com. Now, if I check this out, I should have 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. Cool. If I go to a big screen, here's what it looks like. Card, card, card. And you know what? I just really like the way these card titles and examples, captions look right here, right? It just looks pretty fly. Maybe I'd like to round the borders a little bit. Maybe I'd like to separate them from each other a little bit. But this is just a great way to display little chunks of content in tiny, digestible components. Cards are great. I use them regularly. But there's ways to make this process easier on you, and I'm going to show you one of those in the next video. So I'll go ahead and paste all this code in Slack. Don't worry if you're not getting it right now. I'll paste it all in there, and we'll take a look at this in a second. All right. We now have some cards on our page. We've taken a look at how to create nice little segments of content for our users. But really quickly, I just want to go over how to group them together in a nice, easy to digest fashion if you want to create a bunch of different, say like you have a profile, a page with a bunch of profiles of different students. You can put a card for each student that gives them, a face shot, your best selfie, a little description about yourself, loves math, loves to learn, school is their best friend, right? Yup, that's all my students. So a good way to do that is to use what's known as a card deck, like this, which is a couple different cards stacked up next to each other that kind of share similar content. Each of these here is an animal, right? I've taken these from the girls' development curriculum. Just a few different animals and descriptions about them: a marmot, a mule deer, and an American black bear. This is what it would look like. So you can see here I have a couple different things. I have a container div that holds a card deck wrapper, that holds a card deck div, that holds 3 different cards. It's a lot of stuff, right? But when you actually start to put it in to your HTML page, it's not quite as bad. So let's take a look at that. Back in your Get Bootstrap page, at the very top, there's a nice little navigation section. Find the one that says Card Decks, just like that. Click it, and it should take you down here. These are a set of equal width and height cards, that aren't attached to one another. These are called card decks. And you can see here, we can just grab this whole thing, this card deck, and paste it in. Let's do it. So take this whole thing, copy it, and paste it in. And you can even use the one with the footers too. You know what? Let's do the one with footers, because that's fly. So they have these nice little footers here that tell us when it's updated. Go back to your HTML, and right below line 108 at the very bottom, make a few spaces, and paste that code in. Now again, we're going to have no images here because they don't give us the images, so those images will not display like this. But on a big screen, you'll also notice again, here's the cards. They line up right next to each other in a nice little ordered display, right? Beautiful. Now let's give them some, first of all, let's put them inside a container div, and let's give them some images. So the first thing I'm going to do is surround this whole thing with the div with the class equals container. We're going to do the card decks. So the card columns is another option, but we're actually going to use the card decks for now. And then for each of these sources, I'm going to say lorem pixel, http://lorempixel.com/200/200. And that should drop in a picture for me. Boom, there it is. Copy that and paste it in for all of your sources. And when you save and refresh this page, you should see them line up nicely. Okay, just like that. And if we take a look here, here's how they look. The cards stacking right next to each other, but leaving a little bit of space with their own image and their own title and their own little supporting text. This is just a really cool way to do content, and it works really well for things like social media-esque websites. You'll see cards used pretty regularly. to describe any kind of musical artist, you'll see cards used pretty regularly. If you look at any of the Google websites, they use cards for everything. Though they use more material design-like cards, which we will talk about later on. What's that? Oh yeah, I use 200-200 with the Lorem Pixel. So it's http://lorempixel.com/200/200. Lorempixel.com, if you go there, lorempixel.com, it'll tell you, it just gets a random picture. They're placeholder images for every case. So you just select, and you can even say like at the end /sports if you want a sports image, or dummy text. You can do abstract people, nature, food, nightlife, fashion. You can pick your own category if you want. So I just think it's a really cool website to use. I'm pretty regularly taking them. So help yourself. So yeah, and like I said, there's so many more things we can do with cards. You can do card columns, which this one looks sweet. Look at these little columns with different size cards. If you want to create like a nice little grid layout, cards are really great options for that as well. Now, I'm not going to go too much into those, but that's really all you need to know for layouts with cards. There, like I said, scroll through this, guys, see what else is available, but that's all I'm going to show you for now, because I think everything else is kind of up to your own creative influence. I'll go ahead and paste this code into Slack also, but I'm going to end this video for now. So if you have any questions, let me know.